What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Locked On Badgers. Great show today. We're going to talk basketball recruiting, get more details on a recent commit, plus a little insight on two big-time 2024 in-state Wisconsin prospects. All of that and more on today's Locked On Badgers. Let's go.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to Locked On Badgers, your team every single day. I'm your host, Ryan Herrings. Today's show is brought to you by our good friends over at LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions do apply. And we have Jason Jordan, Sports Illustrated recruiting director on the basketball side, Locked On's college basketball recruiting insider, joining the show. Jason, man, welcome to the show. Appreciate you stopping by.
Absolutely, man. Always great to be here.
Hey, we got some news. So since you last talked, Jack Robison committed, the 2024 kind of small forward out of Lakeville North. A little bit more. Actually, let's start here. What were your thoughts on that commitment, fit to the program? Let's start there.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people, I won't say expected it because these kids throw me off every other day. But, it probably didn't hurt that him and Nolan are really close. Nolan's your 23 commit. But definitely a great fit for the program. I think I look at him as like a 6'7" utility guy, like checks off a lot of boxes. Not one thing that you're going to be like, oh, he's just amazing at this, but he does a lot of things really well. He's going to be a high energy guy, and a guy who mixes it up, hustles. Definitely going to be a 4-year guy who I think, because of the way he plays, will be a guy that your fans will gravitate toward, because he brings that energy, he brings that emotion, and he's a fiery guy on the court. But definitely, but a lot of times when we describe a player like that, we're like, oh, hey, it sounds like a project. He's not, but he has a skill set, and he can, he can stretch the defense, he can knock down shots, he finishes plays. But I think where he's going to earn time is just bringing that energy, bringing that spark, at least early on. As he develops his skill set on the offensive end. But as a defender, I mean, I think he's a really, really intriguing prospect two-way, because he has great anticipation, great length, great timing on his shot block. So, a guy who's going to be able to bring that defensive presence on that end of the floor. And that, as you well know, that's going to earn him minutes in that system.
Yeah, and I want to talk a little bit about his shooting. So this is something you and I have talked a lot about on the show, about the Badger recruits coming in with Winter, with obviously Gus Yalden, Blackwell. This to me looks just like another shooter in a long line of shooters that Greg Gard is bringing in here. Is that his carrying skill is shooting right now?
Yeah, I mean, that's the best thing. I would say that's the best part, right? But I mean, he's able to finish plays, and efficient guy down there. He mixes it up. He can get to the basket and things like that. But yeah, I mean, he's definitely going to be able to stretch the defense. And I mean, that's just the way the game goes, right? You have to have that skill set, especially in the system, to be able to open things up to get into the lane. So that's definitely where the game's going. And obviously, you see a theme there with the players that, to your point, he's bringing in.
Yeah, and just watching him, a couple clips from earlier on, and then a couple more recent clips, it looks like he's gotten bigger too. It looks like he's hit the weight room a little bit. He's gotten a little stronger, filling out. I mean, some of that's probably just normal progression as these players age, but he definitely looks like a player that's progressing.
Yeah, most guys start hitting the weight room in August after the AAU season concludes. So with 2 to 3 months of hitting the weights, that would make logical sense. I haven't seen him since, I think, late July. So that would make sense if you're saying that his more recent stuff. I hadn't seen him in the last 3 months. So yeah, that would make sense, because most guys do hit the weight room harder. Just like it's like a training thing I hear all the time.
We talked about Nolan Winter, and I asked you specifically, what did you see when you saw him in person that maybe doesn't come through on film? I'm going to ask you the same thing with Robison. Seeing him in person, what do you see that maybe isn't evident watching a 4-minute clip of an AAU game or a high school game?
Just the IQ aspect of it, and that's that's the thing that you can't get from clips, and that's why I tell people all the time. just the way he takes direction, the fiery part about his game, the way he mixes it up, those loose balls he's diving for and sacrificing his body and things like that. Those are the things you're not going to get from that clip because, they're just showing him knocking down shots and putting stuff back, changing shots, things like that. But that would be the intangible aspect of his game. And he's got that 100%. He's got that.
Does that feel like, I'm curious on your take on that. Does that feel like kind of a constant theme when you talk about Gus Yalden, right? We talked about intangible emotions, talking about Nolan Winter, John Blackwell's kind of a dog defensively. Like, is this kind of a common string with all these guys that Greg Gard has brought in?
Yeah, it's really clear. Like clearly he wants a type. Like we all got a type. That's his type. He wants a guy who's an absolute dog on the court, no matter the position. Because a lot of guys are like, oh, bigs aren't typically, mostly times I've heard this before. Guards tend to be more dogs than bigs, which is weird. But he wants it at every position. He wants that fire. And clearly he's got it in the guys that he's going after and the guys he's gotten.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit more about his offensive game too. So we talked about the shooting, we talked about the IQ. There's a lot of clips where he's able to get to some mid-range spots too and hit shots, knock down shots. He's pretty versatile. He's a little more versatile than just kind of a shooter. Not that that's what you were saying, but I think he's brings some juice there.
Right. Yeah, he definitely can get to his spots. Like I said, he's an underrated. I would say that's a more underrated part of his game because his shooting ability it stands out a little more. But he can get downhill for sure. He's not a guy who's going to wow you with his ball handling ability. I wouldn't say that. But he's definitely going to get to his spots. And he's not a guy who's going to turn the ball over either. So he's a high IQ guy. He plays within himself. He's not out there trying to be something that he's not, which I think is a strength, right? Because I see that so much. That's actually pretty common. So to see a guy who kind of plays within himself and does things he knows he can do, I would definitely rate him a little higher for that. Sadly, that's sad, but just think about what I just said. But it's so true. I'm telling you, you can ask anybody in the business. I was like, oh wow, you're just gonna be yourself? Oh, that's great. That's great. We're gonna give you another star.
Right. You're not looking for that guy who's trying to take 3 defenders on, and you can't do that. But he's trying to impress people. Yeah, for sure. Playing within yourself and within a system. Listen, that's going to translate well to Wisconsin as well. That's kind of the culture there.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I want to finish up here before we move on to some of the 2024 kids we want to talk about. We talk defense. We talk position. Robison's probably a 3. Is he going to play some 2 potentially in bigger lineups? He's 6'6". Is he more of a 3-4?
Yeah. I would say more of a 3. I would say more of a 3-4, a 3 and like a stretch 4. But because at that level, it's all about who you can defend more so than your offensive part. You know what I'm saying? So if he's not being able to guard 2s and 3, and I think he can, but at that level, there's going to be a curve, especially in that freshman year. That's always the curve, So foot speed alone, I mean, that's something he's going to have to improve if he's going to be playing on the perimeter, guarding guards at at that level. So I would say he's more of a 3 stretch 4.
Okay. Yeah, that's great stuff, and definitely a prospect. It's interesting, with that Minnesota tie ties into Nolan Winter, and there's some other Minnesota kids coming up in this next class too that have some ties there. Coming up, we're going to switch to Wisconsin. A couple of in-state 2024 kids with a lot of upside. We're going to talk about Jason, get his feel on those kids. But first, today's show is brought to you by our friends at BetOnline. BetOnline remains your number one source for all of your sports betting needs and information and the new start of the basketball season. Find all the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, and in-depth analysis on every game. And as always, BetOnline remains your continued source for all your sports wagering information, live betting up to the minute scores for every sport out there. The fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite games and events, baseball, MMA, boxing, esports, golf, everything is there on BetOnline, plus live casino games. Head to the website today. Use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. Thank everybody for listening to Locked On Badgers, making this one of your first listens every day. When you're done here, go check out Locked On Sports Today. From the games that matter the most to the biggest stories in sports, go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insight only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports Today, available on this app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, we're going to bring Jason back on. Really appreciate everybody tuning in today. Jason's awesome. We try to get him on as much as we can. I want to shift to a couple 2024 in-state Wisconsin kids, Jason, guys that are generating a lot of recruiting hype. I want to start with Kon Knueppel, who is a 6'5", small forward, 205 pounds, out of Wisconsin Lutheran in the Milwaukee area. What are your thoughts about him? Have you seen him live? What's his game like to you?
Yeah, he plays for Phenom U, but definitely biggest part about his game, we kind of talked about it earlier. He's a shot maker at all levels, right? So he's adept at creating his own shot, and at his size, he's able to shoot over the top of smaller guards, which he really thrives at. So he can get to that mid range and pull up, but he's always hunting his shot, perimeter shot. He's not a set shooter, but most guys who can create their shot off the dribble are also set shooters. Typically, it's not the other way around, but he's able to create his own shot. But he's a big time shot maker.
He feels like a guy
to create his shot. So typically, he's not a guy who's going to finish at the rim with authority, but he's more of a high IQ guy who's going to stop in the mid range and pull up and give you the same 2 points you would have got for that dunk.
Yeah, he feels like a guy who can be the upside here is he can almost be the focal point of an offense. High awareness, good passer, can score, uses his size well. Do you see him kind of being that top level scorer, offensive catalyst at the next level?
Yeah, eventually. I mean, he'll have to, get a little quicker. But I mean, he gets to his spot. I say that, but he gets to his spot. But I've seen some struggle from time to time. But he's younger, you know what I'm saying? And but he's definitely one of the best shot makers in that tier and of the class. But he when he gets it going, it's tough to stop him. It's tough to stop. He's very accurate.
What are your thoughts, just what you've heard or what you think will happen playing out with his recruitment in terms of how long the timeline will be, maybe where he's looking?
Yeah. I definitely think he's going to, I've been told that he's going to go through the process. I always give that caveat because kids, I've said that before, and then they're like, you know what? I know I said that, but I'm going to commit tonight. Wait, what? You have 5 visits planned. They're on the books. But I think he's going to go throughout the process and, go on visits and, as he should, he's just, like you said, they're starting to, but they created their buzz in the summer. So a lot of guys tend to want to reap the benefits in the following spring, because that's when it really heats up. And then, they want to climb a little bit too. And the reality is this truth. Uncommitted players tend to be a little hotter. So especially when you're trying to ascend in those rankings, and all the kids are trying to ascend, whether they say it or not. So a lot of times kids will wait for that to kind of build it up a little bit more, especially in the marketing world that we live in now. So I would expect he and Nick to let it play out a little bit.
Is there an AAU side to that too, where AAU teams want the exposure of uncommitted recruits, people coming out watching them, so there's a pressure there to delay it as well?
Yeah, I always hear that's always funny to me when the coaches are like, "Hey, man, don't commit just yet. You help your teammates out, get them some looks." I've never really heard that worked out. I've never really heard it. You, but man, we just want to, forget about you. We want this guy.
Right.
I have heard it before, and when I say before, maybe once. But I don't think that was even an offer. Like sometimes they're like, "Oh, he's pretty good." It's not like it's not what people think, and it's never what the coach sells it on. So, I don't know.
Right. It's funny because we always hear that. You always hear that in the back burner, AAU coaches are pressuring kids not to commit, get coaches out. It's better for the exposure. We're a part of that. I think those coaches like the attention to some degree as well. I think that's a big part of it.
They do, and it's easier to sell parents like, "Hey, we've got all these guys in the gym," and then it washes your hands of, "I got him in the gym," But they're there for one player, like they're not looking at him. But I'm going to tell you, hey, you just never know, because you do never know. But the reality is, the history doesn't tell us that tends to work out. That's
right. All right, let's finish up here on Conn. We talked a little bit with Robison position. Who's he going to defend? Knipple, he's got good size. He's well built, but he's a little shorter. Is he defending 2s and 3s in your opinion, or where does he fit defensively?
I would say, yeah, twos and threes. Again, he's going to have to be, foot speed. You're going to have to, that's always going to be a curve, especially for guards. But yeah, I would say at his size, at his weight and, his agility level, he's definitely going to be having to defend twos and threes. So that's going to be a little bit of a curve for him from what I've seen.
Do you think early impact guy or a guy who's going to get into a program, take a year or two to?
I always think that shooting ability is the ultimate equalizer, right? So, like, as much as I'm saying, there's going to be a curve defensively, if he's out there knocking down shots, I mean, it's like, okay, all right, well, you did just knock that three down, but you need to work, But yeah, I definitely think because of his shooting ability, because it's elite, it's elite. And that's the way the game is now. If you're a shot maker, he makes contested shots. He's going to see the floor. So if he's with a logical progression, I definitely would think that he's going to be an impact guy pretty early on.
Finish up here. Better shooter of the recent Wisconsin commits or targets, Esigian or Knipple? I put you on the spot there.
From what I've seen, Knipple.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. From what I've actually seen, yeah, I would say him.
All right. No, that sounds great because we've seen the early buzz on Conn already, making some hype in his freshman year. So certainly some of you and I talked about earlier about having a pure stroke as well. Coming up, we're going to talk one more in-state Wisconsin kid who has kind of another kid who can hit shots and has some fiery enthusiasm to his game. That's coming up next on Locked On Badgers. But first, a word from our sponsors. I want to thank everybody for tuning in to Locked On Badgers. Really appreciate everybody making this one of your first stops every day. We got Jason Jordan, Sports Illustrated Basketball Recruiting Director, Locked On Insider. I definitely want to give you an opportunity, Jason, because your stuff is awesome. You're very, very connected. Where can people find your work if they want to get a little more in tune with college basketball recruiting? Yeah,
so SI.com college basketball section. There all the time. And then, Jason Jordan SI on Twitter, Jason C. Jordan on Instagram. Come check me out.
And also, it's awesome insight and very connected guy. He tells the story of the players. Somebody I go to for college basketball recruiting insider stuff. Let's finish up here. Nick Janowski, another 2024 highly ranked in-state Wisconsin kid, combo guard 6'3", coming out of Pewaukee, Wisconsin. What are your thoughts on his game? What have you seen when you've watched him play?
Oh, Nick just gets buckets. He's a bucket getter. And I was saying Knipple has the ability to create his own shot, but Nick is even better at creating his own shot. So he's adept at creating space. He has a more ball on the string handle. So he's creating space. He's crossing over. He's hitting you with a lot of combos with hesitation, dribbles, and different things like that. Because the goal is to launch. The goal is to launch that thing, and it's super accurate too. He played at Phenom too, and what the one thing I like about him the most, and he moves well without the ball, things like that. What you would want from a combo guard. So let's get that out the way. The one thing I like about him the most is on the court, and I mean this in a good way. He's cocky.
Oh yeah,
right. I love a cocky player on the court, as long as it's just on the court. Because I think that makes him who he is. I think he has to be that. That's his persona on the court. So, and it allows him to thrive. It's worked well for him, and he gets buckets, 100%. He's a bucket getter,
and you can
all over the court.
You can see that cockiness. Just watch film of him when he hits a bucket. He'll come down the court yelling, "That dude can't guard me! Can't guard me!"
He'll let you know. He's gonna let you know.
Yeah, it is. It is fun to watch. And to your point, very, very isolation skilled, right? Yeah. He's able to step back, hit threes, create space with footwork. Yeah. How often when you watch a player like that, do you think, how is he going to translate into an offense that maybe isn't as isolation heavy? Now, Wisconsin did that a lot with Johnny Davis last year, but typically it's not an offense that isos guys and just lets them go to work.
Yeah. So it's always an adjustment, that kind of thing. You have to have different elements to your game. But I mean, it's also an adjustment for a coach, right? Because you don't want to take away what is strong about and what makes him special. And that is what makes him special. So a lot of times the coach will, if they want him, they know what he does well. That kind of kid you wouldn't want to bottle up, but he's got to play within the confines of, and I think they would make that adjustment for him because that's, that is him. You don't want to take away what makes him special. And, that is 100% what makes him special. But it's got to be in the comp. And, and that's all about growing up, maturing, and knowing when to pick your spots and call your number and things like that. So that comes with maturity. And, with a logical progression, those things work themselves out. They tend to.
Yeah, a couple more quick questions here. This is great stuff. We talked about combo guard. Does he have the passing ability, the IQ to be kind of a secondary playmaker, to be an initiator of offense, or is he just more? I don't want to say just more, but is he more of a volume scorer?
Yeah, well, that's when he's at his best, when he's getting downhill. When he's in attack mode, that's when he's at his best. He definitely has playmaking ability, but he's gonna give you the most bang for your buck when he's looking to score, right? So I think, I don't think they want him to run the offense. Not that he can't, but to the earlier point, you want him at his best, and you want him to be out there sniping, and I think when he's trying to, that's a lot of thinking, and that comes with that maturity aspect too. So I know guys, in his lane, they tend to be like, because they look at the NBA and they're like, hey, I'm 6'3", I need to be a point guard. But I mean, the reality is, I see these guys all the time. All of them are 6'3". I know they say they're 6'6", they're 6'3", and they're, I'm talking about the scorers, the best scorers, in the league. I mean, Dwayne Wade was 6'3", 6'2",
right?
6'3", and so I think to the earlier, but be who you are, and I think he's a scorer all over the court, and that's where he's gonna make his name. That's where he's gonna earn his money eventually. But definitely a guy who needs the ball in his hands and needs to be looking to score. He moves really well. I said that earlier, but moves really well without the ball. So for a guy like him, that's very important. And he needs to be able to run off screens. He's got to get open. And he does that really well from what I've seen.
Awesome stuff as always, man. Last question here. Same one we asked about Knipple. How do you see his recruitment playing out? A long timeline, similar situation?
Yeah, I think so. Younger guy. It's once again, that caveat, because of the portal, some guys are saying, well, let me get my spot. But I think he's a guy who probably would go through the process and go shake some hands and kiss some babies at some university. So I don't think I don't think he's going to commit before his season's over, like his high school season. I think he'll go throughout the process.
Okay. Great stuff as always, Jason. Thank you for jumping on the show. He is Jason Jordan, Sports Illustrated recruiting insider, Locked On's college basketball recruiting insider. Really appreciate it, man. As always, hope to get you back next week or the next couple weeks to continue talking Badger hoops.
Sounds good, man. Look forward to it.
And thank you, everybody, for tuning into Locked On Badgers. When you're done here, go check out Locked On Sports Today. All the latest stories, instant reactions, big game recaps, take of the day, available on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts. Really do appreciate everybody tuning in. We're going to continue talking Badgers with you on Wisconsin, and we'll talk tomorrow.